New Cross in London is an inner-city neighbourhood just south of the River Thames in the borough of Lewisham. Demographically, it's one of the poorer areas of London. However, it's also acknowledged to be a creative hub, thanks largely to the university at its centre, Goldsmiths, famous for its drama, dance and arts. Like most inner-city areas, New Cross also has a dark side.
In 2000, New Cross had a particular high crime rate, mainly due to crack cocaine. And because of the drug problem in the area, it had a high rate of crime and a high rate of burglary.
The Lewisham New Cross area is a real mix of wealthy people, but on the other side, it's that inner London, inner city band with a lot of social housing and also a lot of crime.
Those areas were rough areas, a lot of gangs, a lot of murders, a lot of them sort of knife-related shootings. Not probably as much as there is now, but there certainly was quite a few shootings in those days.
On Friday night, the 10th of November 2000, emergency services were called to an incident on New Cross Road. It was reported that there had been a vicious attack on a member of the staff at a venue known at the time as the Paradise Bar.
The doorman at the Paradise Club on New Cross Road was stabbed around about 10:30 on the 10th of November 2000.
There's an immediate response from the uniform guys, and in this case they will have assessed very quickly that this was a life-threatening assault involving violent criminals.
What was described to the police was that he was lying in a pool of his own blood on the pavement outside the club, and that he'd been attacked by a group of 4 young men who had brought with them a pit bull dog.
They cordoned off the area and they called in the duty on-call homicide team.
And the objective there is to secure the scene, identify potential witnesses and secure possible evidence.
At that time, we brought in the homicide assessment team, which was a car staffed by murder investigation detectives that were on the shift system, and they were the first response in that golden hour. They would work with the uniform officers to seal off the area, preserve any kind of forensic exhibits, and then they would report to the on-call senior investigating officer.
They look at the scene, it's clearly an attempted murder, if not a murder, and they call the on-call SIO, who is Will O'Reilly.
It's called the golden hour. Those first steps at the scene of a crime are vitally important because you can lose evidence very, very quickly. You can lose witnesses and you can lose the forensic capabilities of that scene. So my first step was to really put the cordons in place, secure whatever witnesses we got, make some appeals around to the locals, initial house-to-house inquiries to see if anybody had saw anything that we would perhaps lose at a later stage, and really secure the forensic evidence.
The doorman who had been attacked was 36-year-old George Napier. George, often known as a gentle giant, was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries following the incident, but tragically was pronounced dead on his arrival.
George Napier was born in Scotland. He was a family man. He had 3 children and lived with his partner in the Tottenham area of London. He was working as a doorman part-time, but he had aspirations of becoming a lawyer.
Although he was physically pretty big and imposing, he was very caring, thoughtful, friendly towards everyone he knew.
As so often happens, it can be one punch or one stab, and they hit the right place and that's it, and the victim's dead.
Earlier on that night, George had refused entry to the club to a man called Spencer, who had a dog.
George, who was the doorman, said, "Well, you're not coming in," and he didn't like that, and neither did his friends, and they all went off.
And very shortly after, he returned with a larger group and a dog.
We didn't know who stabbed who at that stage. Even the other bouncer on the door couldn't actually name the person or couldn't describe the person who actually caused the fatal blow.
While Will O'Reilly and his CSI gathered evidence, his team also needed to work fast to identify the man known as Spencer. Very quickly, they discovered that this was a man who was known to the police.
Spencer Shepherd was known locally by many, many people as an owner of similar dogs, American Pit Bull Terriers. His name was popping up from various witnesses pretty quickly that evening as a possible suspect.
They knew that Spencer Shepherd was out. They knew that he was with 3 other men, and therefore they had a good starting point for their investigation.
While the blood samples were sent to the crime lab for immediate analysis, Will's team had also discovered a known address for prime suspect Spencer Shepherd.
Spencer Shepherd's identity was known very early on. His premises, the address that was linked to him, would always be a very early call for the investigative team.
We knew that someone had been murdered, stabbed with a knife by a very violent criminal. So I was concerned about what we were finding, would people be in danger. So we ended up arranging for an armed unit to assist us, and we also had a dog van there at that stage because we were aware that a dog was used. We raided that premises, and inside we found a badly injured Pit Bull Terrier. There was no other persons present. The dog was captured by our police dog handlers who are trained in such things and taken away.
The dog handlers would have taken control of the dog. He was injured anyway. Been taken to a vet, cared for.
We might have had an expert who was able to say, yeah, the hairs from that dog match hairs on your victim that are also on the clothing. But of course, part of the problem there is that, yeah, they may be on the victim, but if everybody else knew the owner of the dog, being around his house, you could get innocent transfers. So it was something that you consider.
We don't stop when we think we've got enough evidence. We carry on until we've got all the potential evidence that we can possibly find, tying up that chain which puts people at the scene.
And the search paid off as more evidence was discovered.
Over the course of the next 24 hours, we had some information coming into us that led us to the discovery of a cache of clothing that was used by the suspects and then discarded because they thought that contained vital evidence. And so we recovered that, and that led us to widen the search area with a specialist search team.
The drain but said, look, get a Pulsar unit, which is police specialist search advising unit. They've got all the gear for doing it. If you find a knife, put it in a tube and get it up the lab and they can do the examinations on it.
People sometimes think through, it's a weapon, I could be tied to it, or they don't, they throw it away. And a favoured place to dump a weapon is down a drain, and that's where they found the knife.
A knife has been used to stab the victim, George. George's blood, therefore his DNA, was on the knife. That proves that it was the murder weapon. The next thing is to put that murder weapon in someone's hand. Whoever uses it, he puts his DNA and his fingerprints on the knife, and it's the knife that's been used to kill George Napier.
And it was this discovery that led to a vital DNA match. Forensics from the recovered murder weapon were linked to a second man, also known to the police. It was 27-year-old Dwayne Daniels, one of London's most violent criminals. Daniels had just been released from prison.
A very violent career criminal with over 950 convictions for serious crimes, who would, in a heartbeat, a blink of an eye, hold elderly people in their homes.
Dwayne Daniels was an extremely violent man. He received a 10-year sentence for aggravated burglary where an elderly lady was badly beaten up. He was released from prison, and from the moment he was released, he was on a crime spree. He was committing aggravated burglary, he was committing armed robbery.
And investigators also found evidence that Dwayne Daniels was seen with Spencer Shepherd just before the attack. And in February 2001, with the 4 suspects having been on the run for 3 months, investigators got their big break.
We're all creatures of habits, and criminals seem to be more creatures of habit than we are. They tend to commit crime in the area they know because you feel safe there. The danger of that is other people know you.
So the first person to be arrested was Dwayne Daniels, who got arrested at the scene of a very, very violent robbery.
3 months after George's murder, Dwayne Daniels was arrested committing an aggravated burglary at the Halifax Building Society in Twickenham. He was chased by the police and chased by a police dog, and during that chase he injured the police officer and the dog with a knife. He was arrested and also charged with the murder of George Napier.
And when word got around that Dwayne Daniels was in custody, the remaining 3 suspects gave themselves into the police, fearing that if they didn't, they would also be charged with murder. The 2 unknown suspects were now identified as Daniel Clark and Spencer Shepherd's brother, Lewis Shepherd.
And finally, the last person who gives himself up to the police is Spencer Shepherd, the man that owned the dog.
It just gets too much for him, keeping on the run, looking over your shoulder, thinking every knock on the door is going to be a police officer.